we are getting college football playoff expansion for the 2024 season. Literally 2 years from now, we will be gearing up for college football playoff expansion. So what I want to do now is I do want to spend probably the next, 2 to 3 minutes explaining what this will look like, explaining the positives, the negatives, what I like, what I don't, and then we'll get to this week's conference championship game. In terms of just the structure, let's start with the structure. You all know 12 teams in the college football playoff. That is where we are going to be in 2024. What you need to know, the top 6 conferences will all get automatic bids. So this was one of the big talking points early on, right? Is it all at large bids? Is there only 4 automatic bids? Are there 6? Are there more? Are there fewer? And so we have 6 automatic bids and then 6 at large bids into the playoff. The opening round will have 4 first-round buys, which go to the highest-ranked conference champions. So the 4 highest-ranked conference champs will get first-round buys. That means that Notre Dame, unless they join a conference, and yes, the football power that is my UConn Huskies, unless they join a conference, can never get the first-round bye. And then from there, you just rank teams based on the college football playoff rankings. Teams 5 through 12 will play the opening weekend on campus. And from there, it will go from 12 to 8 to 4 to 2 to 1. The first round is on campus. So, for example, right now, and I don't go in a lot of different directions. I'm just trying to give you the who, what, when, where, why, and then we'll get into what it means. Right now, as of today, Ohio State is ranked 5th in the college football playoff. So if the conference championship games unfold the way that we expect, if that top 4 of Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC all win, then Ohio State would be hosting a college football playoff game next weekend or the first weekend of this whole thing. And then again from there, in the round of 8, the round of 4, and the round of 2, which would be the championship game, that's when it goes to the neutral sites that we all know and love. The Rose Bowl, the Sugar, the Fiesta, the Cotton Bowl, things like that, and we'll obviously crown a national champion. So that's the structure. And what I want to talk about now is the positives and negatives. And I think most people who listen to this show know where I stand. I was not in favor of the college football playoff expanding. I'm still not in favor of it, and I will explain why in a minute. But I do want to talk about some positives because I do want to be fair to the conversation. One thing about me, you guys and girls know, I like stuff. I hate stuff. I try to look at things from all perspectives and all sides and understand them. So in terms of the positives, I do think there are a few. First off, I give credit to the powers that be for setting up the structure that they did. We talked about this back in August when we found out that the playoff would expand. And what I said was the thing that I was worried about was that there would be no automatic qualifiers. It would be all at-large teams. And my worry was that we're essentially going to get a playoff that has 5 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten teams, especially with the way the sport is evolving, especially with the TV money in the SEC and the Big Ten relative to everybody else, and that everybody else is going to be left behind. Now, in theory, are schools and conferences probably still going to be left behind? Yeah, but I do like that there are automatic bids. I do like that the Pac-12, if it continues to exist, the Big 12, the ACC, I think I like that those teams get automatic bids because it then, in theory, slows down the next wave of realignment, which will come at some point, but you don't have to be in one of 2 conferences to ultimately get into this college football playoff. So that's a positive. The next positive, I will say, it's going to be cool to have college football playoff games on campuses. It's going to be cool to tune in on a Friday night or a Saturday. I don't believe they'll be playing on Sundays. So Thursday, Friday, whatever it is, and to see, 100,000 people, a whiteout at Penn State and, Auburn coming to town for a playoff game, or Ole Miss coming to town for a playoff game, or USC going to Ole Miss, or whatever the scenario is. That'll be cool. I'm not going to deny that. It'll be awesome. I think everybody's talked about it, but the idea of Southern schools going up north, I don't think it's nearly as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. I don't think Alabama's going to be, they might be literally shaking in their boots going to play in Pennsylvania in December. I don't think metaphorically they will be, though. So those are the positives. And I think the other positives are stuff that you've heard other people talk about in this space. One, in theory, it's going to create more regular season games that matter. Now, again, there will be more regular season games that matter, right? Iowa and Minnesota could be playing for the 13th or one could be 13th and one could be 11th and they're playing for the 12th spot. So more regular season games will matter. And then on top of that, not only will more regular season games matter, but all of the conference championship games will matter because everybody will either be playing for a bid into the playoff, or even a team like Georgia or Michigan this weekend that knows that they're in. You have to win that conference championship game to get a first round bye, which I would think most teams want. And I do think that it will create some interesting dynamics in the conference championship games, which again, I guess in theory is a net positive. Also, no more opt-outs out of bowl games because there will still be bowl games, but they'll be so far down the pecking order that it really won't matter. With that said, though, I am not in favor of college football playoff expansion, and I want to get into why, and I want to share the other perspective because I think 99% of people who cover college football are only going to tell you what I just told you. More games that matter in the regular season, more this, more that, more blah, 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 blah. And as I always tell you, more isn't always better. I like ice cream. It's not the best thing to have for breakfast. It's not the best thing to have 7 nights a week. Same with a drink. You earn the drink at the end of the day. There's a reason that in theory, you're not slugging beers at 9 a.m. Okay. So I'm not in favor of more of everything is always better. And I'm not in favor of expansion of the college football playoff. First of all, I think a lot of the reasons to expand the playoff are mostly nonsense. Okay. So first off, there's this idea that we're going to create more games that matter. We might create more games that matter. I don't know that there's going to be more people caring about those games though. Okay. What I mean by that is college football is a brand-based entity, a brand-based enterprise. Okay. I don't believe that if Minnesota and Iowa are playing for the 11th spot, that you're going to rearrange your schedule to watch it. I know in theory it means more late in the season, but when Iowa and Wisconsin play late, when Minnesota and Wisconsin play late, that already means something to the people that care about that game. I don't think there's going to be this new wave of people in Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia and Montana and Washington that all of a sudden are like, well, honey, get the babysitter. Iowa and Minnesota are playing for the 11th seed. I don't believe that is going to happen, okay? I don't believe that opt-outs were ever a problem for bowl games. I've said it many times. The Rose Bowl was more viewed last year as a non-playoff game than any single NBA game until the finals. You guys and girls still watch the Rose Bowl. You can tell me it's meaningless. You can tell me it doesn't matter. You still tuned in to watch it. And on top of that, I do think it creates some problems with those conference championship games. Everybody talks about how they don't mean anything now and they're going to mean something going forward. But I think it creates a little bit of a chaos factor too, where you have teams like, say, a Utah this year, which right now would be in the playoff as a 12-team playoff. They got to go play an extra game, and they can play themselves out of the playoff. So I don't know how it's fair. I think you're going to be punished for playing in conference championship games, and I guarantee this is going to be a problem. But more than anything, why I'm against the college football playoff expansion is really for 2 reasons. One, basically, and I'll even backtrack and explain it like this, okay? Why I'm not in favor of college football playoff expansion is pretty straightforward. And I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. I believe that it is a solution to a problem that does not exist, okay? I believe it is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist from this perspective. What I'm going to say is this, is that in theory, we're expanding the playoff as a more equitable way to crown a national champion. In other words, the way we're doing it is okay now. It could be better. I don't believe that. I don't buy it. And I don't believe that this is going to solve any problems that currently exist in college football. Okay. So first of all, this idea that, we're leaving out so many teams that deserve to be in. No, we're not. Look at this year. Look at this year and think about who would be. We might not even get to 4 teams. If USC and TCU lose, you know who's going to make the playoff this year? Probably Ohio State, which just got smacked in its biggest game, and Alabama, who lost the 2 biggest games of their season. So we're having trouble getting to 4 teams now, and now we're going to add 8 more teams. So think about what a 12-team playoff would look like this year. Everyone, it's so great. We got all these extra games. Well, first of all, we have extra games now. They're called bowl games. They're awesome. We all watch them. But 2, think about who's going to make a 12-team playoff and who would make a 12-team playoff this year. Alabama and Ohio State, who went a combined 0-3 in their 3 biggest games of the year. Alabama lost to LSU and Tennessee. Ohio State lost to Michigan. Combined to go 0-3 in their 3 biggest games. Both schools want half of their coaching staff fired. You also, on top of that, have a Clemson team that all year long played the wrong quarterback. So congrats to them on making the playoff if they win the ACC championship game. You would have a Tennessee team without their starting quarterback. You would have a Penn State team that lost the only 2 games on their schedule that mattered, Michigan and Ohio State. These are the teams that we're putting in a college football playoff. Why? They're not worthy. Shouldn't you have to earn something like the college football playoff? So to me, not only are you not solving any problems, you're putting teams in that simply don't deserve. And then what ends up happening is the exact opposite of what you think is going to happen. Instead of saying Alabama doesn't deserve to be in, Ohio State doesn't deserve to be in, now they potentially get in. And now, guess what happens? Maybe they're a little bit more motivated. Maybe they're a little bit more inspired. Maybe they end up winning a game or 2. And so I don't think we're going to get more parity. I don't think we're going to get more anything other than the best team still winning. Now you're putting in more of those elite upper level teams, and you're making it harder for a TCU or a USC that earn their way in to get through, because now they got to play an Ohio State and a Michigan back to back, an Ohio State, a Georgia, and then a Michigan, an Ohio State and Alabama, and then a Michigan. And so I don't think it's going to create more parity. I think it's going to be the same 3 or 4 teams at the top. We know who the best teams are, and why I worry about it, why I do not like the college football playoff expansion. I'm just going to tell you right now. I believe that it fundamentally changes everything that we love about college football. Okay. So here's what I mean by that. Okay. So think about that Ohio State game last week against Michigan. Okay. Think about everything that was at stake. It's a rivalry. Big Ten East, Big Ten championship, college football playoff is on the line. Now think about it in the playoff world, an expanded playoff world. What ends up happening? Ohio State loses that game. Come back, get rest. Now you get a week off while Michigan's got to go play again. And we're talking about a situation where Ohio State's still in the playoff. And maybe they get in and maybe they beat whoever. And that game against Michigan, that loss meant nothing. And what we love about college football is that the stakes every single week matter. Think about Alabama against LSU. It felt, you could feel the tension in the air. Same with Michigan, Ohio State. Same with TCU Baylor. And I don't think TCU's that good, like relative to Georgia or Michigan, but TCU Baylor. TCU doesn't make that field goal. Now their whole season is completely different. Future doesn't really mean much. You just bounce back, come back the next week, whatever, hunky-dory. And so to me, I think we're losing the essence of what makes college football college football. What makes college football college football? Every week matters. Every game matters. Every moment, every single week matters. And now, you know what it's going to feel like? I can tell you what it's going to feel like. It's going to feel like the NFL. And so what I am not saying about this situation, I'm not saying people won't watch. Oh, nobody's going to watch the regular season because it doesn't mean as much. I think there's going to be less. Like, that's one thing that I get all the time. People are like, well, Torres, you love college basketball. Why would you not want more college football? I love college basketball. I'm also one of like 11 people that watch the college basketball regular season. Okay. And so I do worry a little bit about it's not going to feel as important. It's not going to feel as meaningful. And if you miss a game or you miss a moment or you miss a play, well, guess what? Ohio State gets to come back in the playoff and I'll watch them then. Alabama lost their last 2 games. Who cares? They'll figure it out. I don't like that. I'm not for it. And to the final point that I was just about to make is that I do feel like, and I do worry that, again, it's going to have an NFL feel to it where we'll still watch it. We'll still love it. We'll still care. We'll still have fun. But think about how you consume the NFL. We watched, say, remember that Minnesota Buffalo game a few weeks ago? Incredible. Incredible. But one team won and one team lost. We all watched it, but then one team won and one team lost. Everybody went on their way. Buffalo season's not over. It doesn't mean anything. Same, by the way, with fill in the blank game. Whoever. Can't think of another big game from the NFL this year. Whatever. Bills, Jets, Bills, Dolphins, Dolphins, Jets, whatever. Think about the big games. The Chargers and Chiefs. Chargers and Chiefs play twice. It's awesome. We enjoy it, but there's no life and death. We know that if the Chargers go 10-7, they're making the playoffs. And in college football, that's what's going to end up happening. That Ohio State-Michigan game, well, Ryan Day just goes to the podium and says, yeah, we shouldn't have lost to Michigan, but at the same time, we'll get them in a few weeks. And so to me, it does fundamentally change everything that we love about college football. I don't like it. I'm not in favor of it. There's nothing I can do about it. So I'm going to stop complaining. College football playoff expansion is here. I'm not in favor. I don't think we're going to get more great games. I think most of the teams that are missing the playoffs are fundamentally flawed. Clemson is flawed. Alabama's flawed. Ohio State's flawed. Utah's flawed. Kansas State's flawed. I'm just not in favor of it. I'm just not. And I think if anything, all it's going to do is create less parity, because now you're putting in more of those elite teams. You're giving Ohio State, you're giving Alabama basically a hall pass to goof off during the regular season. As long as they go 10-2, 9-3, they're getting in. And then they're probably beating your favorite team that had an incredible year.